Hey guys, no weird gimmick for this video. This is gonna be a more serious video instead of just a fun video that I like to do. So in the first video I ever made for my channel, which was my part 1 lore ranking video, I made it public to all 5 of you who watched me that I really dislike the stories of the twins. More specifically, I hate Octavia as a character. The shared story lacked plenty of common sense and human decency between the two, and made the conflict very black and white as to who the victim was and the aggressor was. However, after some time to think back about the story and these characters, I would like to apologize for my unprofessional rant. There were some things that I didn't think of considering when it came to who Vice and Octavia were, so think of this as a deep dive and attempting to explain how this might lessen my anger to the story. So, let us begin.
Here we go again.
Okay, so where did I go wrong for my long, ignorant rant about why I hate these characters? Well, I didn't look at the subtext of what else is most likely going on with the twins. After some reflection and research, it's highly possible that Octavia suffers from ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder, while Vice suffers from ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. Sure, it's not confirmed, but from some hints given to us from the lore, the symptoms are there. Oh, also, this is coming from a high school student with very little info on how they work, so if someone could please correct me in the comments, I'd appreciate that. Cool. For Octavia, she was so hyper-focused on being a star pupil and making songs that would fit her perfectionism. She didn't understand how being drowned in her work and fixation caused the divide between her and Vice, and how hurt Vice felt when she basically abandoned her. In her theme, she has lyrics like, "Your words faded mist odd numbers," and "I just got a feeling I'm sleeping at 10 past 6. Hell, one of her likes is expensive headphones. Okay, that last one is a bit of a stretch, but the rest are pretty evident that she most likely is autistic. As for Vice, well, her symptoms are much more obvious. Ever since she was a kid, she was loud and rambunctious, wanting to do things her own way. It was hard for Vice to learn at the musical academy because the teachers hated her style of playing music. And that conversation at the music festival, the one that I complained about, it's more valid to think her impulsiveness to criticize Octavia is what caused this argument to grow out of control. And some of her voice lines even show more symptoms like inattentiveness.
I think I lost my guitar pick. Hey, who unplugged my amp?
With these bits of evidence that Octavia and Vice might be suffering from mental disabilities, does this lessen my anger against them? Well, for the most part, no. Even without the possibility of ASD, Octavia was still a terrible sister for not even contemplating how much Vice would be suffering without her help. Again, I get that taking the bullet for something your sister did can get embarrassing and exhausting over time, but you couldn't have at least talked to her outside of school, or put her personal music taste aside to help Vice out with homework or music productions? And you still want me to believe that before the argument backstage, she didn't once think, maybe I should try to reconnect with my sister? Honestly, without this possible internal struggle, Octavia sounds worse than what she already is. If she wasn't mentally challenged while her sister was, she would have been making her mentally struggling sister not have anyone to talk to. And using autism as an excuse for shitty behavior like this makes it come off as bad representation for an autistic character. Not even to mention the fact... sorry about that. It just upsets me that the supposed first neurodivergent character in Omega Strikers is written super poorly. And I have absolutely no idea if this was the main idea for Octavia in the first place. If it was, I applaud the writing team for making her a bad sister. But if it wasn't, as someone who also suffers from ASD, I'm pretty disappointed. Anyways, Vice's story was for the most part fine. Her problems in her story stem from the fact that her story is very interlinked with Octavia's. The story of Vice is about an underdog overcoming the mental challenges of life and becoming a rock star. Looking back at it now, it's a really interesting story. It's just that Octavia being in this story and being the active reason for why Vice struggled in the music academy and turned into who she is now, for the most part, drags a triumphant story into a mess of social ignorance. Also, I should correct myself for saying their reason for being in the Pro League isn't good enough. It certainly is, but compared to the other characters on the list who are in the Pro League to get their parents' attention, be accepted by humanity, bring people back, and all these other deeply important and emotional obstacles they have to go through are severe compared to the twins. It's like comparing a scratch to a decapitation. So why am I bringing this all up? Well, I decided to rewrite Octavia's story. I wanted to make it so that Octavia feels more emotional and has a better reason as to why they are in the Pro League. Again, if the intention from the beginning was for Octavia to be a selfish perfectionist, I apologize. But I think Octavia could have been done better. So, here's the reworked lore of Octavia that I made.
Let's hit all the right notes.
Octavia was born a few minutes before her twin, Vice. She was seen as the older sister among the pair and was a prodigy, gaining the respect of many adults. Vice was vastly different from Octavia and often got into trouble, yet Octavia would cover for Vice and the two of them were inseparable. The two shared a dream of creating music together, touring the world. Though music wasn't their only passion, as they made a really good Core Strike team, being able to cover each other's weaknesses. The two were gifted in music, and recognizing this ability, their parents enrolled them into a music academy by their early teens. Upon entering it for the first time, Octavia was starstruck by the amount of styles that she had yet to discover and was eager to continue her education in becoming a musician. Much like when she was a child, Octavia remained a star pupil. However, Vice struggled to adapt and learn in this restricted environment. Octavia knew that Vice would most likely have difficulties adapting and tried to help Vice, but every time she wanted to converse with Vice and ease her nerves, something always came up, be it duties or music. This unfortunately caused a ripple effect that led to the separation of the two, physically and mentally. Eventually, the two graduated and Octavia went on to pursue EDM, a rising music genre in Aten. Octavia gained plenty of success and quickly became a rising star in the music industry. She was seen as a calm, cool, and calculating individual on the outside. Yet away from the eyes of the public, she was stressed about what her next music piece should be, mad at herself for putting work and grades over family, drowning herself in tears of lost childhood memories with someone she wishes she could see daily. But throughout all of this, she continues to make musical masterpieces and attain that public image. A few years after the kickoff of Octavia's musical success, she was invited to Aten's biggest music festival to headline it. Octavia arrived and decided to check the place out before the events would start and noticed a familiar sticker. It was her sister's rock mascot sticker. She started panicking, remembering all those moments back in school that caused this separation, but the show must go on, so she went backstage to prepare. While backstage, she watched her sister's performance and was amazed by how far her sister had come in music. Vice's opening performance ended and she walked backstage. Octavia tried to hide her face from Vice, but Vice knew it was her. Octavia was ready for the worst, and the worst did come. Vice yelled at her, saying that she suffered all those years and felt abandoned by Octavia. Vice felt her only lifeline was gone, and her own sister put her self-preservation and public image over family and a shared dream. Vice swore and screamed to no end, and all Octavia could do was listen and agree. Vice eventually let up and, with tears in her eyes, stormed off to her van. Octavia just sat there, silent. Not a word fell out of her mouth. Not a twitch came from her finger. Her only movement was her eyes watering and blinking. Octavia broke down. She knew that all Vice stated was true. Octavia only saw herself as a monster, a selfish demon willing to use others for her own gain. For the first time ever in what seemed like her entire life, Octavia ran away from her duties. She left the festival to find Vice. It was difficult considering the darkness that felt a lot, but she eventually found it. A rusty blue van sticker-bound with Vice's mascot. Octavia tried the handle to the door of her van, and to her surprise, it was unlocked. Octavia ran in to find Vice, sobbing in her bed. She lightly touched Vice before embracing her, apologizing for her selfishness and greed. After a night of melancholic recollections and atonement, Octavia messaged Vice about wanting to work together like they wanted to as kids. Vice was eager to do something with her sister for so long and immediately accepted the offer. In the studio, they had a difficult time trying to find some kind of mix between their genres of music. Nothing sounded right during production. During these supposed fruitless days of mixing styles, Octavia requested to do the one other thing that they also loved, Core Strike. Thinking their music styles could help them on the field, The twins now stand on a new stage, with Octavia using the melodic sounds of electronic music to bring a beautiful performance amidst the chaos of the Pro League.
Listen up!
So if it wasn't obvious enough, I wanted Octavia to have more of a gray area and be more reflective of her past actions. Yes, she still ignored Vice at the Music Academy, but instead of intentionally ignoring Vice, she had duties she needed to attend to. And instead of just ignoring the past and assuming her sister is fine, she's constantly in this emotional maelstrom when thinking about how unsupportive she was for helping her sister out while keeping up her reputation. She constantly has to swap personas every day just to fake her way through the business. And I wanted that fight backstage to be more impactful instead of just arguing if Octavia was in the right and finally realizing how emotionally abandoning your mentally challenged sister is a bad thing. Vice being the only one talking, stating all of these statements that were all true while Octavia sat and nodded along to how she abandoned their dreams. And by the time it ends, Octavia couldn't keep up her professional persona anymore, and for the first time in her life, she put family over work. She put herself second after so many years of putting her education first. Now, obviously, Vice would need to change her backstory, but it wouldn't have this many changes. The only changes would be the ending and the backstage yelling. I feel that if Octavia went in this direction, I would have loved her way more. Again, there was nothing wrong with making a character that is meant to be annoying, but I don't feel that with Octavia. I at the very least hope that Octavia was meant to be a bit more emotional than how she is now. Her voice lines make her feel too monotone and emotionally drained. I wouldn't expect that from someone who just realized how much they mentally scarred someone they were deeply connected with.
An autograph? Fine. What an eccentric crowd. I'll win, no matter the costs. Here comes the drop. Compose yourself. Feel the rhythm.
Making her lines feel more emotional would make her feel more realistic for what Octavia's been through. And if something happened when making the two, like having to rush the story when making her, I would love someone to tell me, because the Octavia we have now doesn't feel like someone who most likely has ASD, especially coming from someone who has dealt with ASD without knowing they've had it for the past 17 years of their life. I'm gonna get a bit personal. I know that off camera I often have a blank stare, but if something emotionally driving happens to me, I feel that emotion pretty extremely. Sometimes when I want to cry, I can't for some reason, which makes me feel off for not being able to. Maybe I'm just putting my personal life experiences into Octavia's story, but I know that Octavia could have been so much more, and would have been a better representation for autistic characters in fiction. Sorry to end on a somber note, but that'll do it for the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as always to help my video get noticed in the algorithm. Next video will be about the last Clarion Corps member that was just teased. And till next time, keep on striking.